record. All right. And my next question is, were there ways that you were able to show empathy this week? We talked about there's lots of ways to show empathy, but asking questions that evoke a yes response was one tool. But just noticing is another tool. You look sad. Are you sad? Anybody find
I did
opportunity?
the three questions. I had my grandchildren here for a couple of nights, and the 5-year-old granddaughter was just wailing, and she can really get off and cry and cry and cry for a long time. And so I thought, I'm going to try those three questions. And I was amazed. She went through the three and she was calm enough. She could talk to me at the end. And then uh, we didn't talk very long. And she was off and doing something, which is completely different than the interactions I've had with her before or observed with other people. So,
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
yeah.
I
Larissa,
had a similar one for that, the three yeses. My older sons, it worked beautifully for. It was like, oh, and we've like it was like we deactivated the amygdala by the end of the third question. It was crazy.
that's awesome.
So where are those three questions? I don't remember what the three questions were.
So that's kind of my ad. So we're just talking about empathy as a tool in Connect. So proactive connection. Let's see. It's kind of
I
just
wrote my note on page 22, but I don't
22.
know if it was said in that block. But that's where the note was.
Um,
I wrote
yeah,
myself.
the power of empathy. It's kind of in a highlighted section in 22. It's something that I tend to focus on a lot. It's also
Agree.
the opportunity to empathy is listed in kind of that co-regulation piece to switch from the stress cycle to the healing cycle. So empathy is just
Okay.
one of
I
those.
don't see where are there three questions?
Oh, nope, that
Okay,
was just
There were
no,
three specific questions.
yeah. They were, it was just
okay.
my ad to say that's one way that we can engage empathy is by asking three questions that evoke a yes response. That was kind of that's actually not, I don't really see that in the workbook. That's actually kind of my ad. That's your
Okay.
book.
I'd love to have you share some of them that you do use because
Yeah.
I use three, but it was really hard to come up with three.
Yeah. I think it's just noticing like what's going on. So, you know, are you sad right now? Yes. If their brother, they took the toy away from the brother. Wow, did you really want that toy? Right? Because empathy is not saying like I agree with you or that this was okay. Right? It's literally just getting that person who's in misbehavior or struggle to know that I see you and I feel you and I see you. Right? And maybe as close as we can to I understand you. You know, you wanted that toy so much. You wanted that toy more than anything else, right? Didn't you? Trying to think. My teenage daughter can sometimes have some pretty harsh words, like noticing, like pointing out her brother's faults. Um, and I said, "Wow, you really want them to do what's right, don't you? You know, you really care about things being going well, don't you? You'd really like this to go differently, wouldn't you? You know." So it's really a noticing of what's happening. And that, again, that opportunity. So it's this whole idea that these first two parts of the framework are connect before we correct. It's the messages of grace. So we always want to make sure we implement those messages of grace. Child, you're safe with me, and child, you're loved no matter what. Before I say, what am I going to do in this situation? I'm going to say, what's going on in me and what's it like to be my child right now? And so if we can always walk into a situation, right? And so that's the idea of getting slow, low, and listen. If I come in slow, low, and listen, all of a sudden I'm using my brain to work. And it's until it kind of, because, and even when we do have these skills on autopilot, like our amygdala can get hijacked too, and we've got to like step back and ask for a redo. But when we redo, we kind of come in, well, what can I do? How in the heck am I going to make this right? Well, obviously I can say I'm sorry, but we can come in with some empathy and begin to ask, but look for those questions. And when our brain has to work hard to act, that's hard work. And that's where we say like parenting is hard work. I have to overcome my feelings. I have to calm down, find those toxic beliefs, write a graceful truth, and now I can enter in with my child. If they're exhibiting an annoying behavior, wow, you really want to play with me right now, don't you? Wow, you really want to have fun. You can see that mommy's working, but you want to have fun instead right now, don't you? You really want my attention, right? Would you like my attention right now? So it's a noticing, I think. And they can say yes, 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 and they can feel heard. And that begins to take their nervous system down, and we can jump on, get off the stress cycle and jump on that healing cycle.
I felt like my asking myself, what yes questions can I ask, slowed my brain down. Like it was almost like that was my strategy for staying calm, is like, yes, what's going on in me, but if I'm just taking a breath, what's going on in my kid? Like it was a way to activate the right part of my brain in the moment.
It slows you down, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. You can't launch in and just start bear yelling if you're having to use your brain and think. And even to phrase them to get a yes response, I know can take some work. I know Lynn, she coached me and she goes, I would often, when I come on my call, I'd say, I need him to X, Y, and Z. I just need him to sit down for just a minute while I'm at school. And she's like, do you need him to, or do you want him to? Because what if he doesn't? Do you still love him? And she helped me, and I remember she did this exercise with me to rephrase it. Whenever you are telling him something, because I would say, I need you to do this, I need you to do that, instead of bossing everybody around, say, I would really like it if, and just, or I want you to. And so even just rephrasing my question all of a sudden, I don't know that there was magic in the I need versus I want. I think the magic was in me slowing down and just using my brain, doing some really hard work, which slowed me down. So, Larissa, was there anything from your week that you'd like to share that you felt like went well?
Well, I was gone a couple days visiting my grandpa in Alabama, so I don't know, it's just been kind of a hectic week, but I did have a redo.
Yay, that's great.
So, yeah, I just got really angry at my toddler because he cut a hole in the couch, and I felt like I came in with force and frustration, and I'm like, look what you did. And then I just realized, like, I'm like, why did I do that? And just realizing that I was wrong for it. But I felt like in the moment, like, this is the only thing that's going to get through to him if I'm harsh and mean. But then it wasn't. And so he was so forgiving. And like, when I went and said, I'm sorry, mommy blew up, I just got frustrated. And he's like, I love you, mommy.
Oh,
So it's just so encouraging to know that even when we fail, it's like we can, ask for forgiveness and move forward. So, and yeah, so, but this is all new to me. I've never went through any of this before. So I'm still trying to it's like there's a lot of information.
Yeah,
so.
There sure is. Absolutely. And I'm taking, well, you did you were at the workshop. So you did have the overview. But yeah,
I didn't go to the workshop actually. So I
you
went to
didn't get to the
no,
workshop.
so
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, so it is all new for you. Absolutely. Yeah. So this is a lot. And I'm taking us a little slower and deeper through it too.
Yeah.
So, and that's great. Well, thanks for sharing. Those are wonderful. And yeah, every time we stop and we do something intentionally, we gain and grow new skills. And our kids notice. And that's why I love Daniel Siegel's quote that he says, parents that grow have children that grow. When we learn to change, they are seeing that, they're noticing that. And we will talk about that a little bit more today, too. So, okay, I'm going to have us start at the session 3, called and capable, page 33. And our key verse here is Ephesians 2:10, for we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do. And then Psalm 139, we're fearfully and wonderfully made. He knows us full well. And I just love this idea that like our kids have God's handiwork in them, and we're to be stewards of that, right? And to know that we're caring for his child, but that he has something beautiful woven into them. And it's our job to find it. It can feel daunting at times. And that's why when we feel overwhelmed with what to do with this handiwork, right? Like if we get to if we're in session 3 and it becomes overwhelming and it doesn't feel it might feel for some of you or for some of your kids you're not there yet, like some of the material we're gonna be going through. And if that is you, that is okay. And as we continue to kind of build up, we will continue to return to our messages of grace. And you always want to connect before you correct, right? As you build that foundation, only then, will the coach and the responsibility be able to go on top. Otherwise, um, you just need a strong foundation to build on top of. So our key thought in this session is in coach is I can find and build strengths in my child even in misbehavior. So this is the message that we're trying to communicate to our kids through our actions. Child, you are called and capable. I like thinking of the verse when God told Abraham, you are blessed to be a blessing. What blessing do you have to offer the world? And this is our opportunity to see the potential that God has wired into our children and help them to see that and help it to become alive. It's truly, truly exciting. There are a lot of tools in this session. So we'll see which ones we can get to the most. I think because of the script, I think we're going to be able to get to stuff that I don't always get to in my coaching sessions. So, and part of that is when I do one-on-one coaching, not every tool is relevant to every family, and not every tool is kind of like where everybody's at. So that's where in this kind of group context, we're kind of going through all of it. And so that's kind of a blessing in its own right. If something, and I guess what I'm trying to say is at this point, we're moving into the messages of accountability. Okay. So we've got the messages of grace and then the messages of accountability where we're helping you. We say we want to lead with truth and grace. This is the truth part, right? God has wired this into you. You are God's handiwork, and you're responsible for honoring God and honoring your neighbor, right? And we're going to hold you accountable to those things with truth and grace. So our guiding questions here is what can I affirm in my child? We're going to think about focus as fertilizer again. And what skill is needed for my child to grow? So here we have is this growth model, right? And so often we're here, whatever behavior we have with our kids, and we know they should be over here. Kids their age should be doing this, or my kids at this age should be doing this, or their siblings were over here, or gosh, everybody else around me is over here. They're back here, and by God, this is where you need to be. And I just remember putting those expectations on my kids, and that's where we often get the meltdowns, right? Ross Greene is a great author. He has The Explosive Child. I think is that the right word? Yeah, The Explosive Child. Fantastic book, Power of Questions right there in that book. If you have aggression in your home or big behaviors that you can't understand. The other one is Big Baffling Behaviors. I cannot remember, I'm forgetting her name. I haven't read it.
Goebel, Robin Goebel.
Yes. Have you read her?
Yeah.
Okay. Have you found that helpful?
Yeah, I have. I don't always buy into everything that she says. She's not like from a Christian perspective, but she has really good stuff. Yeah.
Okay. I've been hearing some of our coaches that have enjoyed her stuff. I have not read her stuff. But Ross Green, I've everything he said, I'm like, oh my, and Connected Families quotes Ross Green all the time. Where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought. Expectations. When our expectations outstrip their skills, you get meltdown. Okay? So what happens is when the expectations of the room or the parent or the person are greater than what the child believes is their skill level, it's basically give up. I'm done, right? And then that comes out screaming, kicking, yelling, oppositional defiance, whatever. And that's why safety, just neuro safety is so important, so that their brain can stay calm, right? That idea of love that is wired into us, that we're loved no matter what. Whether I screw this up or I do this right, I'm going to be safe and loved no matter what. When those two things are in order, the brain is now ready to engage in some new learning. And that's where we're at. New learning. And so we're going to talk about the idea of a just right challenge. Huge, so huge. And that is the difference between expectations outstripping their skills and the child being ready to do something new and brave. It's growth oriented. Okay. And so a just right challenge, we talked about this a little bit before, but that is something that is not overwhelming, but is something that the child can believe they can do. And they're like, yeah, I can give that a try. Now, here's my question. Who's the one to set that just right challenge? You or the child?
I think it has to be us. Sorry, go ahead, Heather.
No, I'm just saying me,
Okay, so
the
you
grown-ups.
say that you should set the just right challenge. So if you set the just right challenge of, I think that you can put all the dishes away in the dishwasher today. And then the
But
child,
then you would adjust as you see what they can do.
yeah.
So
then we look to the child to say, okay, but I can't do that. I'm not going to do that. You're making it. What could you do? What feels good to you, right? Well, I could maybe put the bottom dishes away. Okay. All right. Can you put the bottom dishes away? Okay, I'll put the top dishes away. And then if you're ready to help me and you can help me a little bit more, that's great. But if you just do the bottom dishes, okay. And we'll work together on this. And I'm so appreciative of your help. Good job, buddy. Right? So who set that? Did I set that? I wanted the whole dishes put away. But what did I get?
Bottom dishes.
I got bottom dishes. Can I be okay with that? Do you think if we're putting bottom dishes away successfully for a while, that it won't be too long until all of a sudden we're getting a lot more help with the top dishes? And in no time at all, we've got a child that's happily putting the dishes away. Not always, right? This is key when we talk about these examples. These are not prescriptive, right? You can't take my example and run in and be like, well, Amy said, if I do this, then this will happen just like this, right? These are descriptive, not prescriptive, because every child is different. So, but you can see the idea and the concept. So So on page 34, our first insight is with ABC affirmations. Your children have God-given gifts and an identity to call out and affirm. All these things that we're speaking is identity forming messages. Child, you are safe with me, right? The idea that you are loved no matter what, right? You're a child that is loved and is safe, can run to God, can run to us when things aren't okay. And now we're saying you're called and capable. And so I love this part because if you were to, I love the part in the gray highlighted section, but it's this idea that we can keep managing behavior, right? We can keep saying, put the dishes away. Put the dishes away. I told you to put the dishes away. When are you going to put the dishes away? You can't go to soccer until the dishes are put away. If you're late for soccer, I'm not going to take you to soccer because you didn't put the dishes away, right? We can just keep managing it, right? But that can just get so exhausting. But if we can get below the surface and help the child know what they're capable of, and this is where Charlotte Mason talks about parents are inspirers. And I love that she talks about that sometimes there's not quite enough for me to go off to know, how do I inspire my child? Well, this is it right here. Could somebody read the gray section by Dr. Alan Kasdan for me? Betsy, would you be able to read that for me?
So was that me?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. Even when kids understand why something is wrong, they still aren't more likely to do what's right the next time. What changes behavior is creating opportunities to practice good behavior and following up with praise.
Right. And so oftentimes we want to create an opportunity for good behavior, but we need their buy-in, right? And this is where team problem solving is going to come in, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But one of the tools that we can use is ABC affirmations. So this is talking to our kids and encouraging them with more than, hey, good job, buddy. I like seeing you do that. Like, that's nice. That gets them a little endorphin hit, right? The ABC affirmation goes so much deeper. So the A stands for action. What positive action did you observe? Use good detail. Benefit is the B. What were the natural benefits to everyone? And you can ask them questions to kind of help them think through it. If you're not, and sometimes I've done that too, because I wasn't sure in the moment, or I just needed a little bit more space, like trying not to like throw it out there and rush on, right? Like we can slow down. And this can instead just be, it can be a very quick thing, or it can actually be a little like affirmation building conversation. And then the C stands for character. What did it take to do that? What character did it require? So what I'm going to have you guys do is write down something that you saw your children do well this week. And so you can go ahead and even write it in the orange section on page 35 if you want. So we'll just do this together. But think of something that you saw that they did that you'd like to affirm them in. So this isn't like, trying to get them to put the dishes away, and then after they did what you told them to, because you nagged 5 times, then you affirm them. This is something they naturally did that was good, because everybody's doing good somewhere, even if it's the smallest thing. I love what Chad Henge says. He always says, like, hey, he talks about his daughter, like, hey, I love that you, how did he say? I love the interaction you had with your sister when you were so frustrated. And she said, but Dad, I punched her. And he said, oh, but sweetie, you held off for like a good 10 minutes before you punched her. I was so proud of you that you waited that long and you were so patient, because it was like a moment of growth. Or before there was just like instant fighting. It was kind of like the bad things still happened, but he saw what was good in her, and he saw that she was building patience and discernment And then eventually she did kind of fall to temptation, but he saw what she was building, and that's what he affirmed. So we can affirm things, even like literally we have to find even the smallest thing, even if it wasn't it didn't end perfect, but what did go well. So maybe just give me a little hand up if you've got yours written down. You guys all have something written down, or do you need another minute?
I'm sorry, I had to step away. I've
Oh,
got
that's okay.
one
So
making a pan brownies.
we're just writing down one thing that you've seen your kids do well this week. And we're going to write an ABC affirmation for it. And it's okay. So then, what? Did we say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say I have mine written down, but then I also have a question. So
Yeah.
if there's
Go for it.
whenever.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Sorry.
Please interrupt. Go ahead, and if you guys have a question as we're going through things, please ask.
Okay. So I have two adult children. They're 20 and 23. And then our 8-year-old. So I feel like a lot of these things are kind of focused on kids, underage kids in the home. And for whatever reason, I can really see, like, I can see a vision for using this with my husband, with
Right.
my work.
Yeah.
I'm a corporate chaplain, so I spend time in the marketplace every week, ministering to people, and I like there's different, so I can see it, but somehow I can't totally see it like with our son. Like, he spends a lot of time playing games on his computer or phone, and like he's going to college, but like every time the bill is due, he's super slow about taking care of it. And my husband and I are not totally handling it the same way, but I'm really trying to stay hands off. But like I feel like some of these examples feel like they might be better with younger kids. And so I'm just not quite sure, like, our son will do things, like he does respond, but like I feel funny saying, "Hey, I noticed you put the dishes away," to an almost 21-year-old.
Okay.
Or
Well,
I
let's
noticed you got your school bill taken care of, or
Yeah. So let's go ahead
what?
and write it, and let's see what words you're going to put together, and we'll see about that. So we'll come back.
I'm not sure what to say.
I know, that's okay. That's why we're doing this. This is exactly why we're doing this, because I feel like this is one of the most powerful tools in the entire book. And I also feel like it's the one that takes the most thought. You have a three-part piece. Now, the important part is not to do it perfect. You won't like it, but I will tell you, if you're going to use this, it's just like the other things. Like, I need to slow down and I need to think about this. And I need to use my mind. Remember, Charlotte Mason believed in thinking persons and thinking mothers. And we're going to think really hard. And some of it is we're going to build a script and we're going to be ready to use it. And then other times we're just going to slow down and have a conversation so we can develop it on the spot. You can just pray into that about how God can use this in your. The other thing is too, you can also write down on the side of your page, like, what is the hot topic for discipline in your home? Like, if you were to pick one, we kind of did that last week too. So why don't we just go ahead and do that? You can, on the left side, you could just jot down, like, what is that hot topic? What is that tough spot? There might be many. Just pick one that you want to have in the back of your mind as we go through these tools, right? So we've got our hot topic, rough spot, and then we've got our ABC affirmation. What good thing did you see? Here's the first question. What was the action? What positive action did you observe? Go ahead and write a sentence. I noticed you put the dishes away, and I didn't even ask. I noticed you picked up your brother's toy instead of leaving it there. That was really, yeah, I'm already going into them. You said, wow, you cleared the table before I even asked. And so what happens is when we notice, it builds the skills. Sorry, I'm just going to read what they have because they say better. This builds skills because children know exactly what they can do again next time. They know what they did well. Okay? So it affirms and it notices what they did well. Use good detail. I noticed you put the dishes away, including, maybe there's a part that they did sloppy last time or whatever.
I was just gonna say too, I think that because this is new to me, I just feel like it's easy to always focus on the negative and what they didn't do right. I can see how this can positively reinforce what we see that they are doing right, as versus always nagging and pointing out the things we don't like.
Right.
Definitely changes the mindset.
And so in that time with the Lord that you've set aside to journal and think through these things, maybe you can think of some more things that you can affirm or be looking for them. And if you notice them, sometimes you're going to notice them after the fact, or you're going to say, oh, I could have affirmed that. You can go back and do it. It doesn't have to be in the moment.
Do you have,
go ahead.
Sorry, do you have any advice? So my son, we've been having lots of challenges with him as well, but different. But he can't receive affirmations. As soon as we affirm him, he'll be like, stop it. Don't, he hates affirmations. And I've suggested to him, I said, it seems like I said, I've noticed that you seem to accept, when I criticize you, and I'm like, come on, you haven't done what you said you're going to do, but when I tell you, hey, well done, you did what I asked you to do, he just, I don't know, do you have any advice on that? I've talked with him about it and how much easier it is for him to accept criticism, but if someone just can't accept affirmations, any advice on that?
Yeah, I think if there's definitely an area where they feel like they're pushing back, it's always good to respect that and just notice. I think that I would have to think about that a little bit more because I would want to go back to the messages of you're safe and you're loved and to see what, how are those, it's obviously an identity thing and him feeling safe is part of that. And so I would begin to kind of go back to those earlier parts of the framework and just begin to ask some questions and see that, where is he in the stress cycle? So that you can, because you want to get off that stress cycle so he can get back on the healing cycle. So I'd have more questions to be able to unpack that. That would be my
I had one child come through my home through foster care that had a really difficult time with affirmation. And she was able to receive written affirmation in a way that she was not able to receive affirmation with eye contact or with me in the same room. And then we read the third book in the Little Women series, and Jo has a weekly book where she lets the kids look at it only once a week of things that she noticed that were growing their character. And all of my children were like, oh, can you have a book? Can you write it down so that I can see it at the end of the week? Which, I don't do that. If I'm lucky, I will notice in the moment. But I do think there's a value in a written affirmation, even if it doesn't get the same eye contact or buzz that we get when we affirm our kids. I think they can still receive it that way sometimes.
I think that's a really thoughtful response. Maybe a little card slipped in the door, a sweet note on the pillow, something like that. Heather, you were something.
Well, I think that's a great idea. Thanks.
I just also thought of something. I've been going through reading a lot of different parenting materials over the last couple of years, especially. And so there's a book, it's not Christian, but it's called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. And it's these two ladies, and they have written about what they learned while participating in a group with Dr. Chaim Ganot. So I think he's a bigger name in child psychology, but I think he's passed away now. But anyways, it is non-Christian, but it does talk about the idea of affirmations, and they talk about being careful of saying, I noticed you did the dishes, good job. They said sometimes it's just better to say, I noticed you did the dishes and just leave it. And like there's something about the added good job or that was great or I really appreciate that. For some kids, they talk about that it can sort of almost create like a pressure to keep it up, to like keep performing. And so I don't always see that with my kids, but I can imagine, and sometimes sometimes I feel like I see that in my kids when I kind of follow it up with, that's great, or I love seeing that. For some kids, that's great, but just the noticing, you know, I saw you got your laundry done, you know, like just, but like, so I so want to follow up with, oh, that's great. Thank you so much. It's just like part of how I speak. But it did make some sense that for some kids, it could almost create another feeling of pressure.
And
So
I think
that's another thought too.
I
I
want
don't
to
know.
divert a little bit back to the ABC affirmation, and I think that's a good
Yeah.
because when we say, I appreciate that, or I this, all of a sudden we're talking about our expectations. And that's another way of saying, you met my expectations. Good job. And that can be a lot for the kids to receive. And so I think that's where
Mhm.
ABC affirmations diverts from that. We're stating the action, and maybe there isn't a lot of detail because it might be, and you put the dishes away on time today because maybe like we have a certain time when we do chores in the afternoon. But maybe it's just you put the dishes away. Now here's the next one. Benefit. What were the natural benefits of the action to everyone involved, including themselves? I bet that felt good. That really helps our family so that we can be cleared and ready to start making dinner on time, right? So take your next step and write the benefit. That made it easy to finish the dinner time chores quickly. We all had more time to play together. This builds wisdom about how life works and motivation to make wise choices. I know there were several nights like we'll go outside and play games out in the yard together on a nice night. But sometimes the kids won't be very quick to help. But my husband and I will make the point to do all the dishes. We've done this before, and then we're not able to play. We only can play a little bit. But then the next night, so would you help us the next time so that we can go out and play together? Because they know we normally do play. Um, and then when it has gone well, then we say, hey, thanks for helping. I noticed you helped so quickly. Now we're able to go out and play together, right? And then finally, we can add character. What did it take to do that? What character did it take to require? So make a statement about the maturity that you saw. This is huge, right? I know in our family too, I've actually been using the word maturity lately. And we have to be careful because it can end up being a little condescending when you're comparing. But when brother or whatever's and then the other one walks away, say, Hudson, that you seemed really upset by that. When you walked away, that showed a lot of maturity and self-control. ABC affirmation right there. How much attention did I give to the brother that was doing the annoying behavior? 0. All my attention went to the positive affirmation to the child, right? As much as I want to diminish the attention on the misbehavior and give all the attention to the affirmation. It takes responsibility and self-control to take care of your chore before getting busy with something else. This builds a positive identity around what they've done, which increases their desire to repeat the wise choice. Okay? So you've had a chance to write the action, the benefit, the character. Now, yes, there is some, I don't know about you, but when I started using this, I kind of fumbled through it. It didn't sound very smooth because I had to use a lot of brain work. Okay? Now it kind of comes out naturally because I want them to know the character that I see in them, because that's what I want to see more of, right? Just like Larissa said, I can focus on what they didn't do, or I can focus on what they did do, even if it is the smallest thing, even if it's only, right? If they're here and I want them over here, all I can hope for is here, right? And when I see this, we've got an ABC affirmation. And then once we get here, we can go here. Once we're here, then we can go here, and things get rolling, and all of a sudden we are over here, right? And it's all those little things put together. So would somebody like to share their ABC affirmation they wrote? You can do it.
I can share mine.
All right.
So, this would be to my son. My son decided this summer he wanted to do a year ahead in math. So he's been working on doing, he's not in homeschool anymore, but he's in public school, but he wanted to get a year ahead. So he's been working on it, and it's been a really big struggle. And we still have like another 10 days to go, and he's only 60% of the way. And so it's like super stressful. Anyway, but here's my affirmation then. So, wow, you completed an entire lesson of math. That's a relief to us and brings you closer to being finished with your goal of jumping ahead a year. It takes a lot of self-discipline and maturity to choose hard work over play.
Thanks for sharing.
And
Wow.
well done.
Who else can share? And there was a lot of good details in there. It's a great conversation. They can also be really short.
And let me ask, like, if I were to say, like, just in the conversation we're having, like, that brought a lot of relief to us, like, because I want to say, like, I know it's caused a lot of strain in our relationship, so I want to kind of say, like, like something along that lines, but I'd also don't like this whole thing, like that Heather Ruth was saying about, like, not putting pressure on him to feeling like he has, because I feel like that is kind of part of what his struggle is, maybe, but I don't know. Should I add that part?
I mean, I think that you need to pray into that, and that, that is kind of between you and him, and what you think that, the messages that he would receive. If he feels pressure from you, then that might be something to pull back on. So yeah, any expectations that we can take off the table, right? Because this is their walk. This is God's handiwork in us. Sometimes we can set expectations or goals, and then we realize that it's actually not the best goal for us, right? And so I know my daughter, for instance, I asked her with her volleyball, I was sharing my daughter made the high school volleyball team, super competitive team. And she's having so much stress and so much anxiety. And I said on our walk, we went for a walk the other night, and I said, do you think that if you make the team that we'll love you more, or if you don't make the team, we'll love you any less? And she actually answered, she goes, I don't know. That was really important. I was walking through the framework with her, just making sure these messages were in place. And I think her stress level was so high, it was so confusing to her. She didn't know what she was feeling. And so we had to unpack that. And so we realized that, like, we're, what is our identity? And I just want you to know, if you don't make that team and you don't play volleyball, I am positive that God has a super important plan. He has a plan for you, whether you make that team or not. And that's such a special plan. And we are going to love you and support you and be so proud of you, and know that you're God's handiwork on either side of that. And it was really important that we put that in there, because I'm all about hard work. I played super high level volleyball. And so I could see that she probably had a lot of expectation of wanting me for her to make it. Because of course I'd want her to make the team, so we get to watch them play volleyball, But she needed to hear from me that even if that goal wasn't met, our relationship was just as strong as ever. So sometimes those questions are good to ask. outside of the situations. We had taken a walk and we were just talking about it. Who else has an ABC affirmation they'd like to share?
My 12-year-olds are working, they're walking into like babysitting for their siblings and things like that. And so I can see that they are trying, but the 3-year-old is difficult for me, let alone for his 12-year-old siblings to try to help with. And so I wrote, like, you offered to help your brother with logic and with kindness. It helps him avoid his fits and it gives mommy space to do other things. Like they're downstairs right now while I'm doing this. And you're showing me in person that I can trust you. And that, like, the trustworthy, that you are being trustworthy.
Wow, that's a good character
And that's like
quality.
a big one for one of my 12-year-olds is he
Yeah.
wants to be trustworthy. So.
Wants to be trusted. And when you did that, that showed me that you have that thing that you want. That's really good. I'd love to hear at least one more. These are so good. I feel like it's so helpful to hear the different ways to write them and the different circumstances. Marissa, you got something you can share with us?
Mine's probably pretty basic, but my son helped me in the garden the other day without complaining. It kind of got away from me. So I just said, thanks for helping in the garden without complaining. It looks really nice now. And I mean, I don't really know what to say for the benefit other than that. And then just the diligence it took to do it, because it really got away from me this summer. So
that's beautiful. The simpler, yes. Honestly, the simpler, the better. Using as few words as possible, especially when there's big emotions or someone's going to have a hard time taking or hearing us. Using as few words as possible is always a good goal. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to talk about gifts gone awry on page 36. And so this is kind of the insight that we talk about with gifts gone awry is even from a young age, you can help your child discover God's purposes for them by tapping into their strengths. So with gifts gone awry, we can empower and equip them with values and skills for their gifts on track. So with gifts gone awry, it's this idea that we all have God's handiwork in us, right? God has placed gifts in every single one of us. In fact, it takes gifts to misbehave. And I love the biblical examples that are on page 37. You can read them on your own, but like the Apostle Paul, right? He was an extreme persecutor of the church. He had a gift for zeal and leadership and determination, right? And but he had to know Jesus. That was the skill and the value that he needed before he could actually use the gift the way God intended. And so what happens is we have a gift, and that gift tainted by sin is what we call misbehavior, right? But when we can redeem that gift in a way that helps us to love God and love others, right? Jesus said, obey, love God and love your neighbor, and all the other commandments will be obeyed, right? And so I love to tell my kids, like, how can this help you love God and love your neighbor and those around you? So go ahead and look on the left, and like everybody to pick out one misbehavior that they can identify with in one of their kids. And then I'm going to have you read that through. So who would like to pick one and read it for us? Who's like, oh yeah, I've got that going on in my house.
I can read whining. You're
Okay.
just saying just read across it?
Yep.
Like,
So the
okay.
behavior's whining. What's the gift that's gone awry?
Okay. Persistence, insight into people and what makes parents given. And then on track is persistence to advocate for the needs of others. And skills and values needed is the ability to articulate desires respectfully, delay of gratification, and contentment.
Right. So what would be a whining situation in your home, Heather?
Most of the time that my daughter asks for something. So my little one, my 8-year-old. So
Yeah. So what would be give us a little role play there.
Can I don't know. Oh, like at bedtime, I spend a little time with her and get her to bed, and then I come down, and then her bedroom's upstairs. So then she's like, tell everybody to come give me a huggy kissy, and I do, and I'm like, I will, and I tell them, but the rest of my family is not in a big hurry or feels compelled to go up there. So then we'll hear from upstairs, is everybody coming?
Keep going.
It's very grating. So I kind of let each of them handle that. I don't really want to respond. I sort of feel like if I respond, I invite more interaction that I don't want. So that may not be the best way to handle that, but that's a prime time every day. So
It's just so persistent, right? And that persistence can carry over into other more positive things, right? But so often we need the ability to articulate things a little bit more respectfully or delay gratification, right? So in that circumstance, she may have a need, right? And so and that's part of it too. Like if that situation's not working for you, we can use team problem solving to find a different bedtime routine that might work better, you know? And so when they're really persistent to get what they want, we can offer empathy, right? So that this is where we kind of go back into our framework and say, wow, you're so persistent. Like we can notice this gift. We can see the potential here, right? Wow, you don't forget what we talked about, right? You're not going to forget that we're supposed to come up, are you? Wow, I love that about you. And it's hard in those bedtimes. They have such needs at bedtime, right? And we want to honor that and maybe find a different way if they have that need. But in any of that, like if it's I want juice, I want juice, get me my juice, when they could clearly get the juice themselves or whatever. Like, wow, you really want that juice, don't you? You know how to keep reminding me you don't forget anything, do you? Oh, you've got a really sharp mind, don't you? But you can see mommy's working on something and I can't quite get it right now, right? And then we can use team problem solving, which we're going to talk about in just a second, to create. And you can give them, and then the other point, sorry, is that you can give them two choices, right? So that's the key with this. We can give them two choices. We call out the gift, we offer empathy, and we can give them choices. Would you like to get the juice yourself, or would you like to wait patiently and talk about something different until mom can get it, right? I love, and we can also call out that gift. I love that you're so persistent, but the way you're using that gift right now is making it really hard for mommy to think and get done what I need to get done so I can help you, right? So it's all about seeing that gift, calling it out, and not diminishing it. Who else has a misbehavior they'd like to use as an example? One more. I'll use defensiveness. I like that one because it's got 2 stars by it. You can kind of see at the very bottom, it says the kids who have the hardest time admitting guilt often feel the worst about having done something wrong, even if it doesn't show. For example, perfectionists tend to be defensive. So when there's a child that's often very defensive, we can think about this as a gift that's gone awry. They have a strong sense of right and wrong and really high standards, right? And that can be really, really good. They can develop, they said the gift on track could be used for helping make family rules and thoughtful rationale. And I would say even like problem solving, and just doing a job well done, right? Those are the gifts that can come out of that. But what's needed for that child is humility, a teachable heart, an understanding of God's love and grace. So we can, my daughter can be very defensive, and I can say something like, wow, you didn't quite get all that picked up over there. Could you go and get it picked up? Well, my brother came by and bumped me and distracted me, so I couldn't get it done. It's all his fault. Oh, okay. Wow, you really would have liked to have done that well, wouldn't you have? It's kind of hard that you didn't get it all picked up. You would have liked to, huh? Some showing empathy. That's okay. I'm sorry that that happened. We can give him grace. Would you like to pick it up, or would you like for me to help you? Yeah, it's hard when people, distract us or whatever. That's going to happen. And so just when we can create that empathy and that opportunity to give them choices, like safe choices, not trapping choices to finish, there can be create a teachable moment to talk about things a little deeper. And it's a little more empathetic.
I have a question about that. When you said safe choices versus the other type, what was the other type? Like just
like trapping choices.
Trapping.
Yeah.
I guess could you help me understand how to do that with a toddler?
Yeah.
Because I feel like toddlers, I felt like I have 4 kids, and I'm sure everyone can relate too, where it's like on some kids you can give choices, but then on like my toddler, the last one, I feel like it just is maddening. Like it's like, I don't know, like I'll cut the banana wrong, I didn't cut the apple right. It's just weird things where it's like OCD, so it's like sometimes my husband's like, maybe less choices with him is better.
Yes. And that's where you go back to, like, if you're staying calm and you're staying in your foundation, number one, and then you go to the next part of the message and we're trying to help him, your love, no matter what, we're trying to ask the question, what's it like to be with my child right now? And there's a really good, it's likely that his sensory system is on high alert. And so probably any choice is not going to be a good choice, right? So you can still give choices, and then you can make the choice and say, oh, you don't, I'm sorry you didn't know. And maybe choices can be overwhelming when their nervous system is overrun. So I would kind of look back at that healing cycle to make sure he's getting those messages of safety and love, and sometimes minimizing choices is better. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If you look on page 42, there is build wisdom and responsibility through questions. And so that's sometimes too, if we're not sure what's going on, we can begin to ask questions. Questions of empathy, what's happening in my child's heart, reality, what's really going on here? When I cut that like that, does that make you upset? And sometimes when I ask questions, I don't know, like especially from a toddler, Larissa, I'm not going to probably get an answer from them. But if that question allows me to evoke empathy and slow me down, sometimes that question asking again, it's engaging my thinking brain. And if my thinking brain is engaged, my fight or flight brain is going to be less likely to be engaged, right? And so as we use these tools, we're engaging our brain to get slow, low, and listen. We can ask questions, response questions. What shall we do? You want to handle this in a way you felt proud of later. What might you do? Like we can begin to talk about like problem solving. How would you like mommy to cut your banana? Can you show me? You know, and maybe in a quiet moment for your toddler, like maybe it's going to be a healing moment to say, you know, later when you're playing, say, I have a banana over here. Can you show me how you wanted it cut? That might not be the thing, right? Because it could have just been in that moment that his sensory system was totally overloaded, but he's never going to have an answer for you. He didn't even know himself, right? And when that's the case, we are just literally soothing and co-regulating, finding anything to do to keep his nervous system calm. High protein snack. Get some peanut butter with that banana. So I'm going to skip ahead, and I really wanted to talk about team problem solving. So this is where we'll land today. And I'll just briefly mention family meetings.
That
So
page 43.
43, yeah.
Okay.
So this is another piece where oftentimes we don't know what's going on with our kids. You guys have all brought up really good questions about like these harder spots, right? And we, instead of managing behavior, we want to mentor belief, right? And the belief we're trying to mentor here is through the message of child, you are called and capable, right? We're trying to affirm in them what is good. But sometimes we don't know what the answer is to like a problem, right? So maybe I'd like you each to write down on the side of your page a problem that you have with the kids, you know, something that you guys are butting up against heads. What's going on here? What seems to be creating a battle? Okay, could be a cut banana, or how toys are getting picked up, or who's going to do the dishes at what time, or what time people are, when bills are getting paid and how they're getting paid, right? All these things are problems. And they can, and power struggles can ensue because we have good intentions for our kids, right? And we want them to, we have goals for them. But meanwhile, how we go about teaching them in hopes of them accomplishing these goals, we often do it in a way that they receive the negative messages. So take that problem and let's look here. A typical power struggle is child versus parent. We have opposing goals. Sally, I don't know, were you the one with the paying bills situation?
Am I the one? What?
Were you the paying bills situation? Or was that Heather?
No, that was Heather.
That was Heather. Were you the child not paying bills?
Yeah, it's really like it has to do with his college bill, and we were able to help him a little bit, but his grandparents set aside some money to help, and so each semester he's got to communicate with them. So print out the bill, write some sort of letter explanation, mail it to them, call them. It's on the way, you know. And so
Multiple steps.
like he pays the late fees. Like he's and we're like, is he really going to have classes or not? Like, are they going to drop all his classes? We don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
So
You want him to succeed. And there's a lot of different steps and a lot of different responsibilities, and probably also a lot of other things that that child would probably be rather doing than those things.
yeah.
And so anyway, I don't know if this is the right, I don't mean to put you on the spot, or I was just kind of saying like, we
It's
can
okay.
take any of these issues and we can nag, we can talk, when are you going to do this, right? All these things. And the messages that we often can communicate when we're working directly with the child on do this, do that is what's important to you is not important to me. And only what I want is important or valid. And so the child easily can receive the messages that they're unimportant or that they are a problem, right? And so you kind of see on that first picture up there, Christ is somewhere in the distance, not even normally a part of the conversation or the picture, right? kind of outside of the situation. But when we can work together on a team problem solving and to solve the problem together, we can become side by side with the child. And all of a sudden, the child is not the problem. The problem is outside of us. The child and I are on a team together. We're working together, and we have Jesus to create unity of mind, unity of heart, unity of spirit, and unity of solution. And so we work together with Jesus to solve the problem. And now all of a sudden, we've got new messages that are communicated that what's important to each of us is important, right? And that you are capable and responsible to solve the problems with other people. You don't have to do this by yourself, right? None of us typically want to say, sorry, all done, not helping you. Now, there are times when there's going to be natural consequences that fall in that category, but typically if we do that, it's usually out of like resentment, right? I'm done. I'm out, right? None of us want to be there. All of us want to help, but we want to help in a way that you're respected and I'm respected. And so what could that look like for one of your, so if you wrote down a situation on the side of your paper, how could team problem solving look like in your situation?
For me,
I'm
this one
not
is
sure.
really, oh, go ahead, Sally.
Go ahead, Sally.
Well, that's fine.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I'm not sure how to draw a team together. My two boys get really kind of silly, and then the conversations start going into inappropriate things. And then if my grandchildren are around, they're learning words that they don't need to learn. And I'm not sure how to,
So the
how
problem
to
that you
change.
wrote down was that you're trying to solve was with multiple people or just one person?
It's actually the two of them.
So what was the problem that you wanted to solve?
Um, Silliness that ends up being inappropriate.
Okay. So instead, we can do it as them as the problem, or you can work together with them. And so what would be, so if you were to address that, addressing it with the grandkids in the room would probably not be the best. So you could maybe pick a time separate when maybe, you could think of a time of day or maybe after something when everybody's got a little bit more chill mood, maybe even first thing in the morning, or maybe even if they get silly together, maybe you could even talk with them one-on-one, right? And what might you say if we're saying, not saying you're the problem, but hey, I've noticed this, right? I've noticed this. And you can add an ABC affirmation in there, right? Maybe there's something that you can affirm in them. Maybe there's some empathy that you could evoke, right? You really like to have fun, don't you? You really are silly. Maybe there's an affirmation. You are a funny kid. That really makes people laugh. I love that you have such lightheartedness about you, right? So all of a sudden we're affirming a gift in them. And then we can say, I noticed that when we get together, these things happen. And that makes it hard to talk. And I'm concerned about the grandkids, right? On the word. What do you think is a good idea? I've tried a few things and it hasn't really stuck. So I'm just wondering like how we could work together, right? We don't have to have this is the beautiful part about this. We don't have to have all the answers. We're actually asking them for part of the solution. We're saying, I felt this. This is where I'm at. Where are you at with this? I've got some ideas, but I've kind of tried this already and it's not working. What ideas do you have? Right? I'd like us to get to a place where we can talk, and you can talk separately and then another time together. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Who else could think of their battle in light of team problem solving?
Mine's kind of similar to Sally's, like where both of my kids are just so incredibly reactive to each other. Like they can't be in a room together without, like, well, and my daughter is just explosive constantly at the moment. But like they can't be in a room together without like her getting activated or him getting activated or them both. And then it's just this disaster, you know? And so it's like, I want to have a family meeting and I try to do it one-on-one, but then it's like we never ever get together. Like I just feel like the whole um problem solving, like I feel like the goal is to kind of get to the point where you could have a meeting together, like with everybody, but we never get there. And so it feels like it never gets resolved. I can just talk to them individually. But I mean, I probably could do more of the ABC, finding the gift gone awry, you know, like there are different things to kind of not just focus on the problems, but focus on like what they're doing right or yeah. But I don't know. I mean, like it's can you really solve? I feel like we're stuck because unless we can get them together, like it feels like impossible to be able to really solve their own conflicts, which is what most everything revolves around at the moment.
Yeah, so it sounds like maybe some peace process stuff that we'll talk about next week, resolving conflict, sibling conflict. And so I think a lot of times when there's a particular problem or particular battle and we need to find a solution, yeah, there definitely is that. Like if you have like high sensory needs or a volatileness, there could be some other background work, like you were saying, Betsy, that needs to happen. How can we get their nervous system calm? How can we get them off the stress cycle so they can be on the healing cycle? How can we co-regulate or help them regulate so that we can have a conversation? Because you're really right. At some point, you do need to be able to have to team problem solve. People need to be able to have problem solving capacity up here. And to do that, you need to create that space. And that's really where that starts. And then I mean, it's a basic, not a basic, it's as quick as, hey, I noticed when this happens, but I think you're right, Betsy, starting with the affirmation, starting with an empathy, those two things. I'm wondering what ideas you have. I think you might have some ideas that I haven't thought of before. Could you think on that for me? Because I could really use your help. And maybe that's all it is. I know for my son, my sensitive and intense son, there were times where it took us a long time to even get to the place where we could sit and have a conversation. And then once we did, he had nothing, nothing. I think there was like almost a year. We stayed at it and he just had so much skill building to do to be able to identify his emotions and put words to his emotions. Just developmentally, he didn't have that component. And now he is one of the most creative problem solvers for some of our sibling dynamics in our whole house at 12 years old. And that took a lot of work. So I guess that's just an encouragement of like I think Betsy, just stepping back, like you said, and getting some of those foundational pieces in. All right. All right. Yeah. So family meetings is the other one that's just really great. And so if you are feeling like there was a lot of times where we couldn't do family meetings for quite a while. So that's not everybody is there yet. If there are just different nuances or dynamics in the family that make getting together, don't feel bad about that. I think this is a really important opportunity to celebrate, like to say, this is where we're at. This is where we're headed. Here's our just right challenge for today. So just the way I opened it up before, like if some of these components of the coach session feel overwhelming, don't be discouraged. You just need to go back to those other parts of the framework, and that's where you're at, and that's where you're leaning in. Next week, we're going to put some things together, and we'll talk about responsibility. Again, I think it's such an advanced part of the framework that often we don't even need to get to correct responsibility because there's so much skill building that happens in our home that when we put our energy into getting to coach and skill building, that there's really not a need to correct. But to have that vision for what reconciliation and restoration can look like so that when you do get there, I think is an important and beautiful thing. Last last take on questions, thoughts about any of this. I think not everybody was on the first week when I mentioned it, but I think I'll do after we're done next week. Want to follow up with any private coaching sessions. I'm just giving everybody the follow-up rate. All my clients get like a $75 follow-up cost for follow-up sessions if you wanted to spend more time with anything. There's an extra resources page. So if there were some of these ideas or you wanted to go deeper, QR code on page 46 for that. Last thoughts or questions?
Do you have any resources that you would use with your children for any of these skills? Like I'm thinking even curriculum that would help kind of walk through some of these skills on the teaching side outside of in the moment. Like with actually building the skills, right? We have lists of them here, but do you have any resources that you use with your children?
No, I did some like feeling stuff early on with like what's going on in my child when they
Okay.
were younger. I've looked at a lot of curriculum and
Yeah.
I'm
Not a fan.
not a fan. It all ends up being pretty formulaic. And as
Okay.
soon as we start working in a formula, we stop thinking, you know? So I think that the power of the affirmations is revolutionary and will change your whole family dynamic if you lean into it. I think seeing your child through lenses of potential is that the part that's gone awry is actually a gift in the working. And if you can get at that gift, affirmation and empathy, and then work on building those skills of what they do need, it changes everything, right? But for those of you in tumultuous situations, that safety and the messages of you're loved no matter what, which is also empathy, right? Are paramount to being able to get to that coaching place. So keep at it. This is really hard work and you're in the trenches. So, and Jesus is the Holy Spirit, Jesus, the Holy Spirit, the Holy Spirit is your advocate as you go about this discipleship, this work of discipling them. And it's calling them, right? And I think that's like, Jesus, even when he healed blind Bartimaeus, he reached out his hand and he says, "What do you want?" He asked him, like, "What do you want?" And he wanted to be healed. Like, he asked questions, he invited, he never forced anybody to follow him, right? And so that's what we're learning to do. We're learning to invite our kids into a great and beautiful adventure. And it's only when their hearts are willing that their hearts are truly going to be open to change. And so really starting at that foundation work and inviting them all the way up to that foundation is just the gospel in action. So it's hard work and we're not Jesus, but we've got Jesus with us. So, all right, ladies, I'm going to pray for us. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the space. These are big thinking ideas, God. And as we spend time with them, God, would you allow the Holy Spirit to just cultivate our hearts and give us eyes to see and ears to hear and words? Would you put the words in our mouth this week and recall in our hearts some of these things that feel so new and so different? And would you just give us a win this week, God? Would you just give us a win so that we can put these things in our hearts, God, so that we can open the gospel to our kids, so that they might know you, Lord. Their minds and their bodies are so busy growing, God. Would you help us because we need your help, because we want them above all else to know you and the hope and the truth that they have in the gospel. In Jesus' precious name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right, ladies, if you think about me, pray for me on my prayer retreat. I got some business to do with God. All right. He's been doing cool stuff in my life,
Have
and I'm
fun.
excited about it. All right.
Yeah.
care.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye.